All right, guys, we are back with the Pat Stedman podcast on this historic day. Trump's inauguration. Um, that was a great speech today, Will. I don't know, were you watching it
Oh, of
earlier?
course.
Yeah,
Yeah. And everyone, I had people that are definitely not Trump supporters messaging me like, yeah, this is pretty fire. This makes sense. This makes
powerful. I
sense.
mean, the vibe has completely shifted, and we are gonna be talking about that obviously today. But I want to do a little throwback here because the 20th of January is obviously it's kind of a significant day for me, especially this 20th of January. This is I mean, especially if as the rumors come out about what's going to happen with the pardons, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Because I what I've heard, I think it kind of threads the needle of all the various differing arguments and perspectives. So I think it's actually what's going to happen. It makes a lot of sense to me. But this year, like on January 20th, 2021, I gave, my last real COVID cabal. I mean, I did a few like COVID cabals after that, if you're thinking about it from like the full cycle of the first COVID cabals from COVID, like it really ended with the one on January 20th. Everything after that was kind of like, you know, like you do another season of a TV show, but it's like it's like this.
Yeah. But the
Like,
actor's not in it because he's worried
yeah,
if he
like
says
yeah, like
anything, it'll affect his legal case.
yeah, exactly. Like there wasn't much that I could say, and it was kind of like at that point, I think that the arc of the show had been completed. Really, it was just sort of like the excess fumes. The community still liked each other, wanted to stay together. So we had a few more shows, and then by March of 2021 they shut down Periscope. So then it was like a random like Twitch. You know what I mean? It wasn't the same. I think everybody can acknowledge it wasn't the same. I mean, I appreciate people who stuck around a little bit longer, but I could even feel like my heart wasn't really in it anymore. It was time to move on. But on January 20th, I gave my last, let's say, real COVID cabal show, and I was basically like, what the fuck?
What did you
This
say, Pat?
Well, what I said was I told Biden's FBI, I said, if you want to arrest me, you pieces of shit, go ahead, come get me. And they did. The next morning they did. In fact, they had already signed my warrant just a couple hours before that show. Um, that was my warrant was signed about 3 hours after the inauguration on January 20th, 2021. So, it's literally like a complete 4-year cycle. That
Yeah.
starting tomorrow, if I'm pardoned today or tomorrow, right? I'm looking at like 4 full years of persecution. And one of them spent completely in prison, the other 3 spent on some degree of supervision. And so it's pretty crazy for me. And once I hear it, once I get the call, it'd be crazy if I get the call during this, but once I get the call,
Wait. Can you just answer that? Is how would that work? Would
I
they
don't I
call
don't
your
know.
lawyer or
I don't know. I mean, the
I guess no
J6,
one?
I'm in touch with some like the families of my J6 friends in prison. And if I can swing it, I'd like to do it. I don't know. It's my contention that I think that the prison has already been given like a prospective list of the people to be released. But I honestly think it's unlikely. I don't really think this is being doomer because it's not a big deal. It's one day. I think they're gonna get released tomorrow. It's my guess. We're already pretty late in the day. Um, so and I've been through the BOP. I know how the BOP works. So my guess is that it's also a holiday. That's another issue for the BOP. The people who do releases are not in on holidays. My whole thing with like when I got released, it was a big issue because the judge insisted I get released on a Sunday rather than the Friday before. And that was like an all day argument, and the BOP had to bring people in to do it. So it's my expectation that they're going to get released tomorrow morning. Um, and that the pardons will be signed today at some point. That's my guess. I think they got one more night, but the what I think is going to happen with the pardons is, and this is that everybody is going to get commuted. So everybody in prison is going to be released, and then everybody with nonviolent charges is going to get a complete pardon and exoneration. The people who have assault charges are then going to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. But nobody is going to
pardon, but not the commutation.
Correct. Yeah. So even if you got a felony for assault, like, and even if you did some really bad behavior that day, which, by the way, a lot of the people who did the felony assaults did not, but you know, I'm not saying that about all of them. No one's going to be left behind in prison. And for me, that was like the red line. So I feel good about that. I feel good about that. Because it's just like, it doesn't feel good. It's not feel good like, here you get a presidential pardon from President Trump and, you know, your friends are still in prison. It just doesn't work. I think it gets more complicated, I guess you could say, for getting rid of the charge itself. But they got to come home. That's the first precondition. So I think that's Trump's right when he said 99.9% of you are going to be happy with that. I think that's true, right? And I also think in the end, most of the J6ers with assault charges are also going to get pardoned, but probably not every single one of them completely. But they want to look on that on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, nobody's going to be in prison anymore. I think that's what's gonna be happening. And I have heard that, yeah, the prisons have lists of the people, so they've already received some contact stuff from, I think, the Trump team to be prepared about certain individuals getting out. So I want to be able to be there and meet them. I would love to go down to Fort Dix to meet my guys out there. You know, I'm in contact with some of the family members about that. I can do that if I'm pardoned. Like, I can't do it right now.
I was going to say, because there's the restrictions, right?
Yeah, if I'm pardoned, I can do that. So we'll see what happens. That'd be fun. I'm gonna wear my prison clothes. I want to be like in solidarity with them. I like actually, Will, you should know this. The audience should know this. I still wear them sometimes. Like, I still wear the boots to the gym.
Yeah, you wore the
like,
one we went for a workout. I noticed
yeah,
that.
I mean, but the thing is, like, that was like a week after I got out. I still do it. Like, there's something wrong with me. Like, I like, I don't. It's just like, oh, like I'm comfortable with this. It's normal. I guess you wear something for a year, you get used to it. So this is a big day, man. This is a big day. I have never felt so much optimism as I felt, and I'm an optimistic person, but like, it's one thing for me to feel optimism when everything bad is happening, and I know we're going to be talking about that, but I think that everybody's starting to feel it. Everybody feels that, just, you know, the lies, the manipulation, they just don't hold any sway anywhere anymore. Like, nobody cares. And we're just pressing forward. We're pressing forward with justice. I mean, you had Biden pardoning his whole family like minutes before he leaves office, pardoning the January 6th committee, pardoning Fauci, Milley. I mean, it's the optics have to be like, I really wonder how people feel on the left. Like, this is like so humiliating. You know what I mean? Like, you've spent years saying that these people are all good people, you know, they're all doing the right thing, and then it's like, why he's like pardoning them for all these, like, all the way back to 2014.
I would love to see an interview series with those people right now. Like, the people that are like, no, he's a good person. This is like, I want to see the mental gymnastics in real time. That would be sort of fun, actually.
Yeah, they're trying to, you know, they're going to try to spin it like, well, they're to protect them from like Trump, you know, going after them. But I say this to people. I say this to people on our side who are like, well, you know, we can't do anything. Like, you know, we need to move forward. We have to forget about that. You know, we can't go after them. Like, look, they frame people and went after them just because they were their political opponents. All we're talking about is accountability. we're not framing anybody with anything. We're literally saying, like, this is what you did, and you have to be held accountable for it. And they're being pardoned to prevent that. But I don't think these pardons are going to work. I'm actually not convinced that they're going to stand up in the Supreme Court, because the pardon is not supposed to be used in this sort of like blanket, blanket manner, especially when it comes to, like, it's being used right now as like, I can have people commit all these crimes on my behalf and I can just pardon all of them. And that's never been seen before.
And my wife was asking this question. I didn't know the answer. What was the original purpose for pardons? Like, presidents doing it, that they do it near the end of their terms? Like, where did that come from originally?
It was typically at the end of a president's term. And the president has the pardon ability because as a means of granting clemency and correcting, let's say, perceptual issues in the judiciary, right? It's considered in some ways to be like I would say it's considered to fix abuses of justice. I don't know if that's how it was framed. I mean, I've read the Constitutional Convention debates, and I think there were some, pushback against the pardon under the agencies that it could be abused. But I think it was overall considered to be a necessary thing to just correct natural abuses that can happen in a system. And I think by and large, that has been what the pardon's been used for throughout history. I think it can also be used. It's also traditionally been used to heal the country. I think with the Nixon stuff with Watergate, for instance, when Nixon resigned, this is the only really analogous example of anything that Biden's done. Nixon resigned, and then years later, when Ford became president, he pardoned Nixon, basically to not, but it was a blanket pardon in the context of Watergate related things. Like, if it turned out that Nixon had run over somebody, with a car and that had been covered up, like, I don't think that, that probably wouldn't have been a federal charge anyway, but you understand the point of my example. Like, he wasn't giving him a blanket pardon on all activities. It was everything that had to do with that specific context of Watergate related things. Anyway, what Biden's doing is a complete bridge too far. And I'm a big fan of the presidential pardon, not only because I'm about to receive one.
A fine purveyor of pardons.
Well, I hope I'm going to receive one. Like, hey, I hope my letter was received in the right way. No, we're going to pardon his friends, but we're not going to pardon him. He's too arrogant about this. Like, no, it'd be like that. But I think that the Supreme Court does need to look into pardoning people for things that they haven't even been charged with. On a that just seems to me like here's the problem with it, as I just think about it right now. The problem with it is that if you're pardoning someone for something that they weren't charged with, you have to ask, well, why weren't they charged? And the fact that they weren't charged indicates corruption already existing in the process. So, for instance, it would, like, the attorney general is supposed to be separate from the president. So if, Fauci's doing all this illegal stuff, let's say, let's use Fauci as an example. He's lying, right? Well, Biden's DOJ should have indicted him. They should have gone after him. And then Biden at the end could say, okay, Fauci's been convicted, or he's about to go to trial for all this stuff, and I'm going to pardon him. Well, it's different, and it feels different, right? Because you had the government was actually investigating him or had convicted him on a charge, and now Biden is, with his pardon, granting clemency. But in this context of its use, it's not being used for clemency, which was the point of the pardon. The pardon's point was clemency. It wasn't to you know, it wasn't to like say you can't touch this person. So the way it's being used in this context, it's like, yeah, we're not going to investigate this person, and we're going to stop the next administration from investigating him or doing anything to him. Yeah, this is a different usage of it. I don't think the Supreme Court's going to hold it up. That's my opinion. But I'll also say this: if they do uphold it, I don't think it's going to end well for these people. And I made a post about this earlier, and I'm not even just talking about like other things that could happen, which I'm not going to talk about.
But
But
what was it? They will not be able to walk the streets.
yeah, they will not be able to walk down the streets. And I'll just say with Fauci, and again, I'm not advocating anything myself. And actually, it doesn't really concern me because I didn't fall for any of the bullshit. And I know it was a confusing time, but I didn't get the vaccine or anything like that. My wife, my kids, we didn't get the vaccine. So even as you have all this stuff come out about the vaccine and all the damage it's doing to people, I don't have personal gripe with Fauci. I thought what he was doing was disgusting. I want him to be held to justice, but he didn't harm my family. You understand? So this isn't. But if you're somebody whose family was harmed because of Fauci's lies, there's like it's not going to be a safe environment for him. Let's just put it that way. And there's a lot of other things you can get. People mention how you can get charged on the state level. I don't know if there's like crimes against humanity. There's a lot of different ways that this can happen even within the system. But even putting aside all that stuff, if you look at the presidential pardons, and I even talked to my lawyer about this. I was asking him, like, well, what do you think? How do you think this stuff will operate? And he says, well,
Did you have to pay an hourly for this?
I was already paying hourly. This is my recent.
All your legal bills are just because you're asking these esoteric.
I didn't call him up on the phone. I was already billable. Like I had to walk with him back from the courthouse, so I had to milk that fee.
Good.
Right, because he was being billed for the walking right at that point, so I had to make him walk and talk. My lawyer, by the way, is a fantastic lawyer, and I really, if you're in like the Philadelphia area, and you ever get into trouble, I really recommend him. Rocco Ciparone. He's a phenomenal lawyer. He's a great guy, and he's expensive. But I'll tell you what, a lot of expensive lawyers are not worth their money. Like Rocco was extremely proactive. He's the reason I got out of prison. He fought like crazy to get me out of prison. A lot of lawyers, it's actually like it's often a lot better just to use a public defender because it's such a racket. And yeah, a lot of public defenders won't care about you, but there are some good ones actually. But a lot of paid lawyers won't care about you either. And you think that if you're paying a lot of money, it means that you're going to get good treatment. But the reality is that I spoke to a lot of people in there who had paid lawyers, and it was horrifying, like absolute scam. We're talking about spending like tens of thousands, $100,000 getting nothing, getting fucking dick. So I'm really happy that I had my lawyer, so anyway, but I was asking him on the way over there about the pardon stuff. And what he said was he thinks that he thinks it'll stick because I mean, I think that the Supreme Court has to clarify it, but he thinks under current stuff, it'll stick, the pardons. But he said they basically function as immunity agreements. So he says there's no reason that they can't be pulled up in an investigation and have to testify. And if they don't testify, they're going to be held, they're going to get perjury. Basically, he basically said they don't have a Fifth Amendment protection anymore because they don't have any, Fifth Amendment says you're protected against self-incrimination. Well, if they're pardoned, there's no self-incrimination. So they have to talk freely. And if they don't talk freely, they can be held in contempt with perjury. And then they're actually charged, and the pardon doesn't cover that. So what these pardons actually do in a certain sense is they expose the entire web. They expose the entire reality of what happened. So I don't think in the end it's going to protect them, but I think more than that, it's going to really only accelerate the exposure because they're not going to have the ability to not speak anymore. And, in the case of Biden doesn't really seem that upset. Like I think he's also a little loony, right? But
did he pardon himself or just the rest of his family?
Just the rest of his family, but he probably I don't know that he's a. I mean, it's another one of those untested things. Has a president ever pardoned himself? He may think that he's protected by presidential immunity, or more likely, he may think that he's protected because he's like loony and has a lot of other defense that he can use. The fact that he wasn't even involved in any of this stuff. You know, he had his family doing it, but there's maybe not. Who knows? You know what I mean? Maybe they will go after him. Maybe they feel like the optics of going directly after Biden aren't so good. But I don't. I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say that. Like I don't. The Bidens to me, it's like a crime family. It's a corrupt loser crime family. But I don't. They're not like the deep state. You know, they were being used by the deep state, and I really think in the end, you know, Biden didn't pardon a lot of people. Like he didn't pardon Merrick Garland. He didn't pardon Matthew Graves. These are the people in the DOJ who did all the prosecutions. He didn't pardon Vindman. All the people connected to Obama and Clinton that were in his cabinet weren't pardoned. He pardoned he pardoned his family and like a handful of other people. So I think in the end, you know, he's like, this ship's sinking. I'm gonna protect my family. I'm going to leave the rest of you guys to rot, just like you left me rotting out there in, you know, not helping with the last election. So I think it'll be interesting to see, but you definitely get the sense that justice is coming, that the truth is coming out. It's just a big vibe shift. And it's optimism.
Energy.
And, you know, and this is the thing, like we want to like pivot into this part of it because, you know, back in 2020, the election, I was, you know, they stole the election and I was like, fuck this. We're fighting it. We're not done. We know what they did. The truth is going to come out. And I've spoken before, you know, some of that led to reckless stuff, you know, going into the Capitol, etc. But the bottom line is I didn't give up on the fight. I always believed that the truth was going to come out. I always believed that we were going to prevail in the end. And even after they won in 2020, I got arrested, eating shit this entire time. I was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay because all this is going to do, like, I thought it was at the time, I had a hard time believing that Trump was going to step down from power because I was under the assumption that if he left, we were screwed. But it just shows like the folly of man, you know, the myopia, because there is such like the fact that we lost in 2020 and we've had to go through this ordeal has been the best thing that ever happened to this country. It's the best thing that ever happened to the world. It was a total mask off moment. And it just took a few months in the 2021 for me to realize that. I'm like, wow, they're going to try to go full bore into the direction that they want to go to. They're not going to have the momentum to go as far as they need to go to completely control everything. And all it's going to accomplish is that it's going to reveal everything that they're doing. They're going to look evil and corrupt, and they're going to destroy their entire program. And that's exactly what's happening. I mean, it's a complete reversal. It's a complete reversal, and it's reversing so fast that, I mean, I can feel under the surface the consciousness changing, people waking up. And I think that my mistake has been like the timing of it. You know what I mean? Like I can feel it happening, but where is that critical point? Where is it? You know, and that critical point obviously was hit this past year. It may have even happened after they tried to kill him, and that didn't work, right? But you can't give up. That's the point here. Is that like you can't allow, like when bad things happen, when like you're being oppressed, when you're being persecuted. I'm not just talking in the context of politics here. I'm talking about in the context of life, because you're going to have periods of life that are really hard. You can't give up. And this is the thing that's bothered me about the internet. It's bothered me about a lot of people on the right, and you still see it, although it's less and less. is that there is a real contingent of people who are addicted to losing. And you can blame the establishment Republicans who get paid to lose. But that's different. Those guys, yeah, they get paid to lose. The sort of right-wing commentators who always believe that everything bad's going to happen, that they're never going to win. Oh, here we go again. These people are doing that. They got us. They have no conception of the fact that good actually triumphs over evil. It's a spiritual disease to not believe that it can happen, and to not believe that that even if it looks bleak, you have to keep fighting. You have to keep your head up high. It's so powerful when you do that. It allows you to endure the circumstances when you keep that bigger perspective. And it's the way you overcome. I mean, look at all that Trump's gone through. Trump kept fighting, never stopped fighting, and now look where he is. I mean, he is the biggest indictment to loser mindset in the world. And people need to internalize that.
When you think about like one of the, it's great to read biographies because you absorb what the people are like. We've had like a living biography here where you sort of, and you think about that. And I was talking to my cousin about it. I was like, yeah, like how can you for the rest of your life like give up having seen what this is like? Like, that you can come back from almost anything. You can do almost anything. And you have this sort of like inspirational figure that you've witnessed over the last 4 to 8 years.
Yeah, it is the difference between great men and people who are forgotten. It's their spirit. It's, do they have this belief that they can overcome, that they can keep moving forward? And, Trump's story is the greatest story ever told. It's the greatest story ever told. There's no question he's going to go down in history books as one of the top 3 presidents of the United States, up there with Washington and Lincoln. And, those are all pivotal moments, and they're times we can't relate to. So it's hard to say one is greater than the other. But this is as great. It's as much on par as those, because all 3 of those individuals either saved or formed the Union. And there's no question that if it hadn't been for Trump, there's no way that we would have been able to get through this. They would have divided the country. They would have fragmented it. They would have destroyed the West, because there was nobody with his courage and resources and, really ability to fight and to speak truth to power. I just think people need to, like, I hate hearing it, and I hate hearing it in any domain. I hate hearing it with women. It's like, well, I'm never gonna meet a girl. All the girls today are sluts. Things are just too bad. Things are too, like, just shut the fuck up. Like, I really, like, just shut up. I'm really tired of hearing it, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's one thing to say things are hard. I don't know what to do. I need help. That's great. Ask for help. If you ask, you shall receive. Right. And I'm not even just saying like you have to do coaching. Like, coaching's great. Coaching's a way to get like energy exchange. You don't just get like information from somebody like me, but you like get my vibe. You get you become in that certain way like me, because we're merging together in the relationship. But even just like listening to like free content and trying to like focus on absorbing the energy and drawing yourself towards the right energy. There's a lot of people out there, and it's not that they say always incorrect facts, but the way that they talk about things, the way that they contextualize things brings you down. It makes you fall into despair. It makes you feel like you don't have any hope.
They're excited to lose. I predicted a loss. It happened. I'm excited. That's very different from, oh yeah, this could happen. Oh, this happened. That's shit. I'll figure it out. Like, there's 2 very different mindsets.
It's such a great way to put it, Will. They're excited to lose. That is exactly what's going on. They're excited to lose. And you can't get anywhere if that's the case. You have to believe that it can be solved. And it can be solved. There's no, like, when I was going down the red pill rabbit hole and I first had my my frictions with Roll and other people, it had to do with the fact that I saw that there were happy marriages that existed. So you can't, like, you're painting this perspective that there are no happy marriages because you're focusing on the fact that there are marriages that are collapsing, right? And the factors that are causing them to collapse. Well, that's good information to know. But what's the positive, right? What are the marriages that are succeeding? Why are they succeeding? They had no interest in any of that information. They just literally just excluded it from their data set. They said, oh, well, they're betas, or, this other thing is the reason for it. They just ignored it. And that's just ignorant. They wanted to lose. They like it when guys are losing. The more guys that lose, the more their tribe grows. The more guys
the
that
energy
win,
spreads, and the
yeah,
more guys that lose, it's self-fulfilling.
it's self-fulfilling. And, for me, it's the more guys who win, the more people I see in happy marriages, the more families I see being formed, the less angst there is between men and women. The more of that I see, the more I feel like I've won. I'm looking for creation. I'm looking to like build future generations who are leaders. And the main factor that determines whether somebody is a leader or whether they're a loser is their ability to handle adversity. Their ability to have the people around them when times are hard feel a sense of hope. Like leaders are not managers. It can be great if they have some managerial ability, but a leader's job is to take the energy of people and concentrate it on a single point. So the leader sets the tone of the energy, he pulls it all towards him, and he concentrates it in a direction. And so if you're somebody who, has no hope and who, can't handle adversity, you're not a leader. No one's going to look to you. And so, and I'll just say also, do you think women want to be with guys who are addicted to losing? I mean, like
No.
it's a negative self-fulfilling prophecy on so many different levels. And this is where we're at. Like we're out in 2025. As far as I'm concerned, this is the new year. This is the new era right now. Trump back in office. We're talking golden age. We're talking positivity, prosperity. But if we're going to realize that, if we're going to help Trump realize that, we need to be as optimistic as him. We need to be as optimistic as him when it comes to our work, when it comes to our dreams, but also when it comes to our women. This country needs to heal in a lot of different ways. And I would really encourage everybody watching this, man or woman, to start viewing the opposite sex as human beings and to look at how you can bridge the gap rather than why they're a problem. Because, we just declared today there's only two sexes, right? So there's only two sexes, So let me check this this comment.
But while you're doing that, one other thing I want to point out is you had, like, when Trump won in November, you had not just like people that were unaffected by it, or even if there's no political change, say in like the manufacturing industry, people had like more hope there. Even like somewhere like El Salvador, people are like, that story, like that gives me more hope that we can make this change, we can do this. And I think that that's the sort of thing that we all want to be now. It's like, okay, how can you make it so people around you, like, that guy winning and his positivity makes me feel like I can win and be more positive. Like, you want to spread that, and that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's the point, in a way, as you and I talk about a lot, of like your account and your business, is like you want to like just sort of spread that aura of like, guys, like you can win and make it so like your friends, your brothers, everyone else are winning and getting married too. Like, that's like the contagion you want to create.
Yeah, people like really don't understand how fast things can turn around. A little bit of positivity is a lot more effective than negativity. Like it has a lot more power and energy behind it. Because people, when things are hard, they're like your average person is really looking for a light out of the tunnel. Most people don't want to be in darkness. They might be conditioned to fall into it, but they don't really want it. Everybody really wants to get out. And if you show that light, I mean, if you're one of 20 people in your circle who spreads that light, you're going to start to move like 5 or 10 of them in your direction. It starts to create like a magnetic pull. So you can start to heal society on a much more rapid basis than you even realize. I mean, like you were saying, Trump wasn't even in office until 5 hours ago. And there was already so much changing just because he had his election created a feeling of hope. like a belief in this different timeline. And we have to believe that there's going to be a different timeline. Like, I don't know how many more times we need to hear like, women are sluts, or, body counts. And it's just like it feels to me like you have to evolve with times. So when we go back like 10 years ago, the manosphere had a lot of insight, new cultural commentary. By the time the teens were ending, by the time we got to the end of Trump's term, it was pretty apparent that what was really needed now was like heroic actions. What was really needed was men stepping up. I'm not talking about stepping up like Mary the slut. Please understand the context I'm trying to talk about. Men stepping up to try to fix the country, to try to fix things, taking action rather than just talking and complaining. And I think I saw more and more people getting that memo, but a lot of people didn't. A lot of people are still talking about this stuff when, as far as I'm concerned, it's passe. Obviously it's still going on, but that's not where the wave's going. Like, I'm telling you right now that by the end of this decade, by the end of the next couple of years, I would even say, but by the end of this decade, it's not going to be even disputable that there is going to be like the ideal of happy, strong, big families. That's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about strong men and feminine women. That is what it's going to be about. And it's not going to be an adversarial dynamic. It's not going to even be like a return to 1950s where women just, there's going to be some new flavors to it, because the women are also going to be strong, and there's also going to be an encouragement of female competence too. But this whole like boss bitch attitude stuff, that's going away. You don't need to talk about the fact that it happens. You just talk about what you want to happen and the benefits of it happening. You speak something positive into fruition rather than constantly focusing and clamoring on the negative. That's what I think people got to get. They got to get that. We're winning. We are fucking winning. We've been winning for the last 10 years. The second Trump walked down that escalator and blew the Overton window open, we started winning. It was just a long fight. And people didn't have that in mind. They couldn't see at that moment the seed of victory had already been planted. It was just on us to water it, to continue to tend it. Because at that point, it was truth. It was light in the darkness. And as long as you could preserve that light, it was going to overpower the darkness. That's where we're at now. We're at the fact that light is now really overcome it. And it's not over. They moved that ceremony inside the rotunda, which is, by the way, like a few feet from where I was sitting on January 6th. But they moved that into the rotunda because of security concerns. And it's obvious that they were moving it in there for security concerns. So this is not over. I'm not trying to say it's over, but for Christ's sake, like at this point, can we please agree that we're winning? Like, we got this. Just keep our eye on the ball, keep and focus on like positive creation. So it makes a big difference. I'll just say this last thing. Like, my parents and my wife have all said this to me on numerous occasions. I made this actually like doable for them. Like, I talk about how like great the support I had was, like how my wife was visiting all the time with the kids, how we didn't have, she was there for me. We didn't have drama. We didn't have bullshit. Right. But the reason for that was because I had a positive attitude about the whole thing. Like I wasn't like depending on her to like keep my spirits up, babe. Like, I'm just like, things are terrible. It's just, I was never an anchor on them. Emotionally, I was never an anchor on them. And that made them want to rise to the occasion too. That made them keep going because they felt like we were going to get there no matter what was happening. And, I'm not a perfect man, right? But I do think guys could learn from that. They could really learn that, when you say you got it handled, it's not just about doing the actual task. Doing the task is good, but it's about the attitude that undergirds the task. It's about the sense of making women feel like when they're with you, everything's going to be okay. That's leadership. We need leaders in America if we're going to reclaim society. So anyway.
Yeah. And I can say, just, I remember in the week or two leading up to you going to prison, I was shocked by, like, I still have the messages and I'll be referencing them in the book, but the way you handled it, where you were making light of it and actually being pretty funny about it, but also admitting, like, there's someone making jokes when they're like trying to bury an emotion, and then there's you addressing the emotion and then making light and having fun with it, and it's a totally different thing. And it was totally one of those things where I was like, this is so different. Like, I have other messages coming from friends that are going through minor girl problems, and they're more of a downer than my boy that's going to prison. And that was weird to me. And that was one of those things that I said, like, that's positive energy. That's what people should be paying attention to from you.
Yeah. I mean, I've always believed that we were going to prevail. I've always believed that we were going to win. And I was always willing to do what it took, you know, and I view all this stuff. And I think this is like a broader point. It's a good one to end on, because part of the whole hard thing with despair is this belief that it's over. You know what I mean? Like, what I'm going through right now is the rest of my life. Never going to recover from this. And it's not only just that, you know, things turn around, and they really do turn around, but it's also like viewing the story of your life. Like, when I look at the story of my life right now, I'm like, all these big risks that I took, I'm so like proud of myself for taking them, because every one of those risks, like starting like this dating relationship coaching business, that was crazy. That was a crazy decision. Like, nobody does that. It was a very, like, you know, flimsy market, but I saw some people had done it. Thought, well, why can't I do it? And I did it. Right? I did it. It's one of the most successful dating relationship coaching businesses out there, and it's got a lot more to go. And it was hard for a while. Like, I wasn't making money. Like, I was struggling, but taking that risk changed the course of my life. And it's not to disparage other people's choices, but I'm just saying that from me, like, having this business, like, I have so much meaning. Like, I love my job. I love my job, and it makes good money. And I feel like I'm helping society. It's like, I think that there's a term like ikigai. It's like a Japanese term, right? Yeah. I've like hit that. It covers every single basis, but that happened because I took a big risk. And, you know, I was allowed. It was embarrassing. I've been constantly embarrassing myself my entire life. You know, I go and I quit my job. I start this business. I make no money. Like, people don't even want to address that. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this guy's a clown. He's a dating relationship coach. You know what I mean? It's clown. But it's paid off. You know, January 6th stuff, standing up for my country, standing up against the stolen election. You know, I'm not saying that I execute every decision properly, but the bottom line is, like, I jump with, you know, imperfect information. I suffer the consequences from jumping, but I also reap the rewards, and the rewards have always been the next echelon in life. Right? Like, I don't even know where this stuff is going to go with the J6 stuff. Like, this arc isn't completed. The bad part of the arc's completed, but the good stuff is just even getting started. And, you know, when I look back later on in my life, like, when I'm an old man and I'm you know, on my deathbed, I'm gonna look back and I'm gonna be like, fuck yeah, I was in the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. You know, I was there. I was in the history books because I was willing to take that risk. And even if it didn't play out in my favor, I would still be okay with that. I would still be okay with the risk, because my life is now colored. And I think what people don't understand is that it's not like the winning's great. The winning's awesome. But it's the whole story that makes even the winning worth anything to begin with. Like, having a life that's worth being told, you can't get that if you don't take risks. You know, you want to have a great love story with a woman. Well, you can't get that great love story unless you actually take the risk and go up and talk to her. Like, guys got to rediscover that. They got to be okay with taking pain. They got to be okay with suffering. If you're not okay with pain and suffering, then despair is going to drown you. The second hard times come, you're going to drown, because it's not, doesn't feel good. I'll tell you, I can't even tell you how bad that some of that stuff felt. But I always was anchored into the bigger picture. We're going to get through this. We're going to win. And also, this is an interesting life. Well, I got a story. I got a story to tell. So I believe in the average man, though. I do believe a lot of men are going to rise to the occasion, because we're becoming a country of winners now. So it's a country of winners again. And when that culture gets re-entrenched in America, it's gonna be incredible, especially with all the technology we have. It's gonna be incredible. So, well, the only thing I'm gonna say about, I got one last little question here in the chat about Ukraine. I'm just gonna make a quick comment about it. I do think that the fact that Fauci was pardoned all the way back to 2014, January 2014, is connected to Ukraine. I think, a lot of the Biden crime family actions really begin in 2014 in Ukraine with the Maidan coup that happened, I believe in February of that year. So, in the biolabs, et cetera, that happened afterwards. And I think these are all things that are going to get revealed in time. I don't think it's not an arbitrary date, because there were a lot of arguments about the biolabs and stuff. So, all right, guys. Will, anything else to add?
No, man. To winning, and I hope that you get the call soon.
Yep, I'm heading to an inauguration party tonight, so it would be great to have that in my pocket then. But we'll find out soon enough. All right, Will. I'll see you guys later on the Pat Stedman podcast, and you have a great Liberation Day.